Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today. My name is Anthony Salas, and on behalf of the American Marketing Association, I'd like to welcome you to today's webcast sponsored by Click, a progress company, and titled Why Personalized Digital Marketing Hasn't Worked Yet. As part of our continuing efforts to be the most relevant force and voice shaping marketing around the world, the AMA offers a variety of resources, training, and tools to enhance your lifelong learning and provide you with valuable information and connections. If you go to ama.org, you'll see a full listing of our upcoming events, both in person and online. And you can also click through the various resources that are available to you. So at your convenience, please do go visit ama.org. And before we get started today, just a few quick housekeeping items to go over with you. We are recording the full presentation, and it will be made available to you very soon after, so look for that coming your way. If you can join us today on Twitter, we would love to have you engage at hashtag CMSPersonalization you see currently on your screen. So feel free to use that hashtag and send out some tweets as the presentation goes on. And if you have any questions, please use that chat feature that you see there to the left of your screen. Any technical questions you might have, you can enter in that area as well, and we'll get to those as quickly as possible. And content-related questions, we do encourage you to enter those as the presentation goes on. We will add those to the list of questions that we have, and then we'll be addressing them at the end of the formal presentation. So now it is my pleasure to introduce our speakers joining us today, both of whom are from Sitefinity, Telerik, a progress company, Robert Matson, who's the Director of Product Marketing, and Svetla Yankova, who's the Product Marketing Manager. And both Robert and Svetla have a lot of great insights and information that they're going to be sharing with you today. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Robert, who's going to start today's presentation.
Thank you, Anthony. I do appreciate it, and I'd like to thank you all for joining us today. I know you have many choices in your webcast, and we're glad you chose ours today. So our topic today is about personalization, and the interesting thing is when you take a look at what the industry out there and what folks like yourselves are thinking about personalization. This graph is from a 2015 study done by the Consultancy on Digital Trends, and they asked the question about what's important to people and what are the things that they're going to be focusing on and top of mind when it comes to marketers. And you notice the number one is targeting and personalization at 30%. And I thought that was very telling because we're all trying to find a better experience for the people that we're interacting with as marketers. But when I started taking a look through this graph, I noticed some things that were pretty much additive because doing targeting and personalization requires a lot of work and a lot of information. So you think about content optimization, that's number two at 29%. But what is personalization except content optimization? You take a look at multi-channel campaign management. Well, obviously you want to personalize through all of the different channels you have, whether it's your website or whether it's mobile or anything else. There are different areas when you take a look at real-time marketing. What is real-time marketing with personalization without real-time marketing? Really, that is by itself very much a definition of it. So we take a look at all these different things that are top of mind, these top 18 items that came up in the study, and we see that a lot of them add up to really what we're talking about today, which is personalization. And in that same study, they took a look at the trend from 2014 to 2015, and they also asked a question about what do they think is going to be the most exciting opportunity 5 years hence. And we could take a look at personalization, which in 2014 was at 10%, and 2015 up to 11%, but it's going to be up to 16% 5 years hence, and that would be second, just behind customer experience. And to me, really, when you talk about customer experience and personalization, you don't talk about one without the other. Because to really improve that customer experience, you have to have great personalization. So the interesting thing is that we've got really a tidal wave of personalization coming to us over the next 5 years, and we have to learn how to do it better. Because right now, we don't do it that well, or at least most of us don't. So let's take a look at the different uses for personalization and the different trends that we're already seeing. And they tend to be different for B2C and B2B. So if we think B2C, it tends to be a little bit more purchase focused because it's about people like yourselves and myself when we're going out, whether we're buying a new battery-powered drill or a water heater or some new music, we're taking a look at trying to purchase something. And we're doing a little bit of research, but in general, our end goal is a shorter-term purchase. So we're looking at shorter-term decision cycles and a little bit more of an impulse buy in personalization. So it's really an individual decision. We're not probably bringing in a whole bunch of people to help us make that decision. And we're looking at products and services. And we see that this trend is becoming more and more likely as things move on. But in B2B, it tends to be different. And we're seeing a big investment and focus in 2015 in B2B personalization. But the focus is very different because it's not just about going and making an impulse buy or a short-term purchase. It's usually about longer-term incentives because there are more people that have to be part of this decision. So it's a lot more research-oriented. So instead of just giving someone a chance to buy an add-on item with an item you're selling, it's more about how do I lead them down the path to making a decision that leads to my door. So you're trying to feed them with different content pieces that are associated, and it's a little bit more of a complex relationship because it's less about two particular items, more about an entire pathway. And this is the truth whether it's products or services. So we're seeing that more and more B2B companies are actually going to be driving personalization and really the advancement of the processes, the best practices, and even the technology in those areas. So it's a good thing. Most people want to do it. But what are the challenges? Well, when we put our heads together and took a look at what we're seeing in our industry and also what we're seeing in a number of industries out there in the markets, we came up with 5 different major issues that are being faced: technology, scalability, data, process, and lastly, privacy and compliance. So let's dig in a little bit to each of these. So when we take a look at technology, one of the challenges is really just the maturity of the personalization platforms out there. A lot of different technologies at different products, different technology platforms are saying you can do personalization. And oftentimes that's true. But the trouble is, to scale it, it gets very, very difficult unless you've got a more mature platform that enables the scalability to be a lot easier for personalization. And when Svetlana comes in and starts talking about how we can solve some of these problems, she'll get into a little bit more detail there. The other issue is really talking about the domains of personalization. Because are you talking about personalization within your personal domain, so the web properties that you own, or maybe even the mobile apps that you own? Are you talking about extending beyond those walls to advertising platforms? Just like you see today when you go to look at something at Amazon, that something you looked at will follow you throughout your web browsing. And even beyond that. So if I am doing what I consider kind of that passive personalization, I don't see it hitting me, it just comes up. So whether it's me seeing custom personalization on a website of a particular vendor, whether it's an ad popping along with Google ads from Amazon. But what about when you're getting something actively hitting you? So you're getting an email that has information, or you're getting coupons that are coming to you in the mail that seem to be personalized to your needs. That's expanding that domain. And when you take a look at it, you have to decide where you're going to start and how you're going to logically expand out of there. And that's one of the challenges that people face. Sometimes they try to boil the ocean. And lastly, in the technology area, it's really trying to access all that good data that you need. Because how you're going to personalize depends upon both standard information, information that you could probably think about really quickly, but also combinations of information which drive a better persona profile or specific targeting of different content. And we have an example of that coming up in a later slide. Then scalability. Now scalability, people often jump to the idea that and I apologize. I hear that I am potentially cutting out a little bit on some people, and I apologize for that. We'll see if we can do anything about that. But when it comes to scalability, there's the ability to scale in a lot of different areas. One is how many personalization profiles do you want to have? Do you want to have 2, 3, a dozen, 50, one for each individual that comes to your site or looks at your mobile app? What is the depth of those personalizations? Is it just going to be based upon maybe their job title? Maybe it's going to be based upon where they are, what region they live in, or accessing your online digital property. Maybe it's going to be based upon if they own your products. Or let's go even deeper. Which products they own and how long they've had them. Where are they in their buying cycle? So you can actually start creating plateaus of personalization to try to decide how deep you're going to go. Then there's a question of the amount of data required. Can you even hold on to that much data? Can you get access to it? So you have to start thinking about where that data is coming from. And finally, the things that are pretty much top of the line with me is maintainability of personalization. Many different projects start with great ideas and they launch, but then they can't be maintained. So what is the level of effort to not only implement but maintain your personalization and keep it in alignment with all of your business goals over time? And that's where we see many people fail, because they start out with a team of very focused individuals that are driving this, but then they're pulled off in other projects and they start to fail. So when it comes to data, first, where is it? Is it in your CRM system? Does it live in your website? Are you pulling it from a third party? How can you get your hands on it? How easy is it to access it? How often can you access it? And if you're pulling data from many different systems, can you normalize it? So when you take a look at the data and you look at an individual that's coming to you and you say, I want to know if they're an existing client, so that probably comes from your finance system or your CRM. I want to find out what they've been looking at, so that comes from your web content management system. I want to find out if I've sent them an email or maybe they've attended an event from my marketing team, so that's from the marketing automation system. So how do you pull that information together to create that profile of the individual that you're trying to access? And can you do it all consistently? Again, maintainability is vitally important. So if you can do it once, that's great, but remember, you have to keep on refreshing that data and make sure you have a reusable process. And then the question is, can you store all of it? Because we're talking about the level of big data that you need, that you have to make sure that you can store it, whether you store it in-house or on the cloud. You have to make sure that you have the capacity to store all these different data points. And next is process. This is something that we see really catching people a lot, because different people own different data systems. So your CRM system might be owned by your sales ops, your marketing automation system by marketing. Maybe your IT system, your IT people actually own your website. So do you have the commitment of all of these people to work together? And do you have sponsorship at a high enough level to make sure that continues on? Once you figure out, get these people in the same room, who owns the integration of that data? Because oftentimes anyone who's worked on a large-scale process knows that it's too easy to finger point when something's not working. So having a single owner, and if you have something like a chief customer experience officer, that's someone who can drive down these type of decisions. And we're seeing more and more of these, what they call CXOs, chief experience officers, chief customer officer. Sometimes it's a CEO, but oftentimes that person doesn't have the time to really not only talk the talk, but implement those ideas. So who decides that personalization strategy? That high-level individual. And then figuring out, again, maintainability. If you have someone, and a lot of people we talk to might use a third party and bring them in because they can focus just on getting those personalizations and maintaining all of the different data points that you need. And the last point I want to touch on is all about privacy and compliance. So what data really is fair game for personalization? There's a lot of conversations out there now because there's a lot of talk about personal privacy. People want their data to be safe and they want it to be private. But marketers, like ourselves, we want as much information as we can so we can target things better. So one of the challenges is, where's that balance? And if you're going globally, data privacy has different laws and different regulations, different legislation in the U.S. versus the EU and other parts of the world, making sure that you're accessing only the information that will be legal for you to utilize. So things like HIPAA in the U.S., if you're a healthcare provider and you're trying to make sure that you're offering the right services, is it legal to use any kind of information about an individual on any kind of their medical records? Most likely not. So you have to be concerned about that. And I'd like to give you a fantastic example. Now this is something that happened in Target. Target actually did a lot of great data mining, and there was an article in Forbes that talked about this. And one thing they found out was about the perception versus the reality. So what Target did is they figured out what products that women started to buy before they became, right when they were becoming pregnant. So they could actually figure out whether to offer someone saying, hey, you know, it would be logical for us to offer them a coupon for diapers or for a stroller or something like that. But the trouble is that they figured it out before the person actually informed Target that they were pregnant. They never filled out a form saying that I'm expecting a child. Please send me these coupons. So Target was getting into a little bit of hot water that people kind of had a big brother approach saying, I didn't tell you this. How do you know it? And they were just doing straight up, taking a look at the data they had and figure things out. It's like, wow, we figured out that people are buying these items before they start buying diapers. It makes perfect sense. So what they did was very, very smart. They started creating personalized sets of coupons. But they included all the things that they had that were diapers and strollers, but they included them with things for a lawnmower or wine glasses. So they found that people would actually utilize those coupons, but they wouldn't be offended because it was intermixed with all these other items, but they would still use them at nearly the same rate. But the perception of violating someone's privacy, even though they never did, was enough to get them some angry phone calls. And I think they had a great approach to still getting their job done, still getting their tasks done, but actually mixing and matching so people weren't offended by it. So those are some of the challenges that you face when you do personalization. But from this point on, we'd like to talk a little bit about the solutions to that and how you can get from personalization maybe not working as well as it does today if you're down that road, or if you're just starting, you can start taking a look at how you can make it work better. And with that said, I'd like to turn it over to my colleague, Svetlana Yankova. So Svetlana's going to start walking you through some ideas for how you can make this path a little easier to walk. Svetlana?
Thank you, Robert. And thanks for the great presentation and great overview of the challenges. And wow, I mean, it must seem daunting right now, regardless of whether you're in the business of trying to personalize the web experience for your client, you're maybe trying to figure out how to speak to them better, maybe your product offerings are way too versatile, way too complex, and you're trying to really figure out how best to segment your audience, come up with the right targeted message, and have the right message to deliver the message and to do these one-on-one conversations, which sound great in theory. The ability for a machine or for a web experience, for a customer experience to speak directly to a customer is exciting as an opportunity. But right now I wanted to zoom into three questions, three challenges that are stopping us from doing that effectively, and how we can tackle those challenges in specific, and how we can solve them and really set up the right strategy so that within the next 5 years, as personalization really and truly becomes this very exciting investment, this very exciting area of focus, and as we said before, it even surpasses mobile, we will be well equipped to handle these challenges. And the three that I wanted to talk about, they come from years and years of experience in talking to customers and clients who are looking to adopt personalization technology and tackle on personalization challenges. And they essentially come from this issue. Personalization in general, whatever type of personalization you're talking about, be it web, be it mobile, be it email, be it even personalization within the retail experience, they are very excited about the opportunity, but it is a very intensive process. It requires a lot of resources. It requires a lot of investment. It requires a whole new technology set in general. And so basically we wanted to look into how to solve those requirements. And here's the first point. So the scale of personalization, the requirement that you need to be able to talk personally to multiple groups of people, potentially a very large number of groups of people, a very large number of segments. and you need to deliver them a personal message. On your end means you have to create a lot of content and a lot of segmentation rules, and you have to manage them and test them and iterate on them, and they will probably not be right on the first try, right? So having an iterative process is a complete requirement, which essentially means that marketing units are the ones best to own this process, because we as marketing are used to being able to, come up with an idea or a hypothesis, put some content together, put a promotion, put a campaign, test that idea, look at the metrics, come back, refine, and so on. So if you have a constant reliance on IT, if every single personalization task, be it the most simple one where we want the website and the homepage banner say something specific to the client's geography, their location, their industry, or something like that, to more complex examples where the entire experience is tailored and personalized in alternative universes depending on the type of client, that cannot be something continuously reliant on IT, because you have multiple marketing units competing for IT attention, and those multiple marketing units need to make these iterations on their end. So integration between business and IT is absolutely crucial to deliver personalization at the scale that we want to deliver it on. Otherwise, the alternative is you may buy into a technology, or you may get the capabilities to deliver that somehow, but if the barrier to deliver the smallest little personalization experience or a new kind of personalization experience is a 3-month project, then you just end up not doing it, right? So you just end up having the technology and not using it because it's not a priority, because you guys all know that we are exceptionally busy with promotions, with campaigns, and adding another layer of personalization on top of that sometimes does not make the priority cut. So the solution to that is to integrate business and IT, and the requirement for that is that through means of whatever you're adopting, the business users, marketing users, get to decide on the segmentation rules. They get to decide who to target and with what. And they get to decide on the content. And they can iterate and make those changes constantly. So, today you decide you want to personalize for users in Washington, D.C. Tomorrow you may want to include Maryland to that mix. And then after that you may want to filter that list only to show content to users that are existing clients from that area and filter out the new prospects out of that. So these types of decisions need to be made by business, and business should be able to control and create those personalizations and deliver the personalized content without actually going through a back and forth. Because if you do go through the back and forth, again, it just ends up being shoved down the priority queue very, very quickly. On the other hand, IT is an exceptionally great partner when we're talking about personalization. So IT is the partner that can deliver a new data point. So let's say that today business marketing is able to personalize based on geography and based on website behavior. And tomorrow they want to incorporate and personalize based on also mobile app behavior. What people are doing in our mobile app could attribute to personalization on the website, some idea like that. Well, in this case, IT should be able to ship once and deliver this capability, but then the business should be able to make those modifications and then decide again on segmentation, so that they can decide, okay, well, I want to personalize for people who view this screen on the mobile app versus that screen on the mobile app, and I want to personalize for people who spend 10 minutes on there versus 30 versus never logged in general. So transforming this into IT being a support service to IT actually being a product delivery is something that will enable that process further. And IT has that power. With the right platform, IT has that power to extend the personalization capabilities and create business-friendly configuration so that business can make those decisions and determination on personalization. The second point is that the entire complexity of this whole scenario really requires separation of presentation and content. Here's the idea. So let's say you have website and campaigns, and you have 2,000 pages and a few hundred campaigns and emails and all those things going on. Now, if you go that and you say, okay, I want to personalize for these 5 different groups of people, well, that multiplies the complexity of your problem, right? So that in and by itself means that you need to maintain much more versions and copies and alternative universes of whatever it is that you're trying to personalize. And a solution to that, which is actually a strong solution for being able to centralize and manage digital content anywhere, is to think about it in terms of separation of presentation and content. So if you look at this computer website and the screenshot, and if we wanted to have kind of a personalized top seller product offering, Amazon style offering, you really shouldn't think about this as something that is statically handled, right? You shouldn't think about this as, okay, I create a new segment and then I decide on laptops, and then I create a new segment and then I decide on the laptops, and then I create a third segment and decide on the laptops. Instead, a really good solution for this is to have a central repository of content that maintains all the information you have necessary. So you have all the offers managed in one place with all their metadata, potentially primary message, secondary message, call to actions, all that different metadata, including classifications, so that you get to classify this content. You get to sort of say, okay, this offer is relevant to gamers, this offer is relevant to CIOs, this offer is relevant to CMOs, and so on and so forth. So having the central repository, being able to manage this, funnels content authors to create these types of promotions on a very massive scale, and then within presentation you can decide how you want to filter them, how you want to display them within a personalized message. So having a dynamic structure like that really and truly enables you to be able to apply personalization everywhere, because at this point you not only get to personalize the home page as in this example, but you can add a little personalized toolbar on any page of the website, and then maybe you can use this data, maybe you can use those top sellers, display them on the mobile app, maybe you want to display them on an email or anything like that. But you do have that central way of managing all the information together. And it's the same within B2B as in with B2C. If you think about it in terms of how the mechanics of delivering an experience actually works, it usually boils down to that one piece of content that you want to deliver, right? And that piece of content can be a promotion, it can be a product, it can be a B2C product, it can be a coupon code in B2C space, or it can be more of a message, research material in B2B space. But in both cases, this product or this message has benefits that relate to different people in different ways. So what you would do is manage that metadata and manage the information in a central way so that you have your message for CIOs, you have your message for marketers, and you just change up the template depending on who you're personalizing for. So that is, again, a second very important thing that I wanted to emphasize on, is being really good at dynamic, structured content is an enabler for personalization to work. Otherwise, it just doesn't become scalable. So one question that you can always ask yourself whenever you're thinking of tackling products of projects of personalization is, well, okay, how can we structure this? How can we put the personalization and the content into a structure so that it can be reused regardless of where the personalization is, web, mobile, etc. And then the third point that I wanted to hit upon is the following. Personalization requires investment. I'm not just talking about technology investment. That is probably the least bit of investment that you're going to make, but it requires also significant time investment. Case in point, you probably, let's say you decide to personalize for 4 or 5 different personas that you're selling to, 4 or 5 different segments, such as business users, IT buyers, marketing buyers, etc. Then you have to go in and develop these personas. Then you have to go and develop content for these personas, and you have to develop separate messaging, and you have to develop potentially completely separate experiences that these personas might relate to. And all that requires a lot of investment. So by the time you are ready to deliver some kind of personalization and decide on a segment, you've put in a lot of work. And that work happens constantly if you go into delivering personalized experience. So investment usually requires justification, especially if it's long-term investment, and especially if it's an investment that you need to constantly iterate and improve over time. But let's say you decide to invest and you decide to personalize by geography, for example, or by personas. Well, that yields new content, as we said, and a lot of work on new content. And hopefully with this content, you are able to deliver some kind of personalization. And then you're able to manage and track some results. And looking at those results, you are able to make some determination on the ROI. What is the return of investment for the amount of work that I put into this, for the amount of man hours, for the cost of technology, for all the efforts, for the opportunity cost of us not working on other stuff and things like that. And that ROI is crucial because it helps you justify further investments and iterations. So you're right, it is a long game. And the way that we see for you to be successful is actually interesting because if you get to results quickly, this helps you continue and justify the investment in an override long game strategy. So this entire process, it's a multi-year strategy, but as much as we can shorten this cycle from investment to ROI, the more we're able to adapt and improve and increase the ROI, and the more we're able to really justify this investment and to maybe include personalization tasks in our marketing plan, include personalized content, include persona development, and things like that. In the ideal case, there is the organizational long-term commitment long-term commitment from the high level of the company, but sometimes we have to prove the point. And so in order to prove the point, we may need to shorten the cycle and go a little bit more agile in these cycles, but still be very strategic in our overall overarching customer experience strategy. I wanted to sort of show you things from that perspective and kind of go through a little example as well. Now, there's a lot of data points that you can utilize within personalization, which also adds on to the complexity of the process, right? So looking at the various data points, you can think of a personalization strategy as an enrichment of data. So let's say an anonymous visitor comes in, you don't know anything about them, and they visit your website. Well, right off the bat, even if they haven't clicked on anything, even if they just get 0 clicks, there's ways for you to find out where they're from based on their IP. There's numerous databases out there that can infer location based on IP. There's even companies that go a step deeper than that, and they maintain databases that match IP address with the company that this person is coming from. Now, of course, this is not an exact science. It's not intended to be 100% accurate to say, okay, well, this person is actually coming from a government IP, coming from Washington, D.C., or anything like that. But these services are getting very, very accurate. Another thing that you know off the bat is how they landed on your site. Maybe they clicked on a banner or a tweet or an ad, or maybe they landed directly on your site, or they were referred by another site. So knowing these parameters, you can also deduce something about them. Search keywords is another great way to determine what they're looking for. Now, unfortunately, search keywords, most cases, are being encrypted by search engines. We used to have that power as marketers to look at search keywords. But yeah, even if you've seen Google Analytics in the past couple of years, most search keywords are hidden, and we don't get to know the organic search terms that people are using. And then you also can know the off-site browsing. Maybe they're landing on your website for the first time, but maybe your company has 250 other websites. And you have the opportunity to make a cross-sell. A cross-sell is much easier than a new sell, right? Because they know the brand, they have the relationship, and things like that. And so you can probably make some determination based on off-site browsing. So right within 0 clicks, you have a lot of power to personalize. You can use any of these parameters to actually personalize their first landing. The problem with all those is that, probably excluding search keywords, which in most cases you don't have, is that none of these parameters really tell you much about the purchase intent and about what the customer is looking for. So you have to drill down some levers deeper in that to truly personalize, but that still is a lot of power. And as we go down the funnel, right within the first 10 or 20 or so clicks, we now start to get information about browsing history, about what they navigate, what they search. Potentially we can deduce something like persona. Persona is essentially a term we use to qualify users. So we say, you know, this person is more like a marketer, this person is more like a developer, this person is more like a CIO, and things like that. And then also you can deduce some kind of conversion likelihood, which is done through various practices, including lead scoring. So as they start clicking, you can potentially start in getting this information. If they're checking out your pricing and they're doing very thorough research on pricing, well, maybe their conversion likelihood is bigger than anybody who's just looking at the documentation. So there's a lot of potential. Opportunities, even when the customer is anonymous. Now, when the customer becomes non-anonymous, this is where things get interesting, because we get their email, right? So that means we can tap into CRM data, we can tap into various form data, we can tap into past browsing that they've done on a different machine or mobile device or anything like that. And if we do a good job of identity association and figuring out the social identity of the person, maybe if we utilize something like logging using LinkedIn, logging using Twitter, or anything like that, then we can grab their social identity and potentially grab some social data from that as well. And then, of course, upon purchasing, some of the most powerful data points we have is, you know, we have their purchase history, we have potentially idea about their satisfaction, we have their address, we have their support communication, and various other data points like that that happen upon purchase, and therefore you can personalize after that. So one way to really look at personalization strategy is the following. It can the type of personalization you use depends on what stage of the funnel you want to impact. So if you want to impact just the initial exposure, then you can use the sort of implicit parameters. Implicit means things you know off the bat, like IP address, and things you can infer from IP address. Then as the customer goes down the funnel and goes into discovery and consideration and conversion stages, then you can add more and more of these data points that we discussed on the previous slide. So the depth of data is added as we go down the funnel. We can potentially incorporate persona profiling and targeting and persona-based marketing in the discovery stage. When they enter in the consideration stage, we can add on some CRM data or data from marketing automation systems. As they go into conversion stages, then we can continue adding more data and changing our delivery method. So maybe we can send an email or personalize a homepage or anything like that. And then as we go into customer relationship and retention, then we go into account-based and purchase history-based personalization, which some research indicates that marketers find the biggest ROI opportunity in. So depending on what area you want to impact, you can definitely look at personalization this way. And then, this kind of framework helps you decide where do you start, right? Because that's a question. Okay, I just showed you 2 slides ago, 20 different parameters. There's number of different other parameters that you can also use. So it's really daunting to think, where do you start? And to make that decision, a good framework is to kind of look at your funnel, look at the conversion rates that you see, and pinpoint a problem. If you have 1% conversion rate between anonymous visitor and lead, but then all the other conversion rates down the funnel are healthy, 20%, 60%, whatever type of conversion rate you'll be happy with, well then I may just focus on these initial set of data points. And maybe I would experiment personalizing those first 1 or 2 clicks in order to increase that and optimize that conversion rate. So really having a clear look at your funnel, having a clear look at what are the conversion rates you have, who owns them, what is their behavior, what are their dynamics, is something that will help you make strategic decisions about tackling personalization and justifying return on personalization. One approach that I wanted to talk to you about is the following, and it goes back to my third point there, is that we need to shorten the cycle between investment and getting an idea of ROI. And one way to shorten any cycle is, Agile. Agile is just a methodology that you can use in order to work within very quick cycles that prove return very fast. And the point of that is that you get to adjust tactics based on the results really quickly. So let's just go through an example. Let's say you have 14 locations, 14 markets that you sell in, and you also have 3 different personas, 3 different customer types that you sell to. Instead of going in and developing location-specific content for all the 14 locations and managing the segmentation for all the 14 locations, and then executing on that, and then going into the persona, doing massive persona development for all the 3 personas, creating a complete messaging and positioning overhaul for all the 3 personas. All these things are great, but they seem a little slow. By the time you're finished with all 14, a lot of time has passed, and you don't really know which location to focus on or anything like that. So one advice that I could give you is, okay, try Agile. Let's just pick 1 location and then just maybe 1 asset that we want to personalize. So let's just say we want to personalize the homepage for U.S. customers. Incorporate a couple of the U.S. specific case studies, change up a little bit of the messaging, but just pick something that we can execute on within a day, right? Something that we already have the content for, or content is easy to manage. And then let's pick something else. Let's pick a different asset. Maybe pick persona, some of those personalization criteria that happen within the first 5 or 10 clicks. So let's say we want to personalize for gamers, and we'll forget about the other personas for now and just pick 1 promotion that will be relevant to gamers, and figure out something to execute quickly on. It doesn't have to be a complete branding and messaging exercise. It can just be one small thing. And looking at that, then you can look at the performance of these different personalized experience and compare them side by side to look to really determine, okay, which one provided better return, which one provided better results, and therefore you can iterate faster on those. So conversion rate is one great metric you can use to compare, because sometimes things don't convert to the same outcomes. So sometimes, for gamers, you may be tackling online purchases versus for CIOs, you may be tackling enterprise contracts or things like that. Then you may want to go into looking at either conversion rates or what we call here attribution, which is essentially a metric of how much more likely does an asset or personalization makes a person to convert. So looking at those side by side will really help you make a decision, and then you can compare and see how US is doing versus like European Union or personalization for Germany. You can compare points, and you can decide where to reinvest, where to put more effort, and fine-tune the process very, very quickly. So again, this goes back to the point of how do we start, how do we prove the investment, how do we align that strategy along the funnel if there is a conversion rate that we want to tackle, if there is a conversion rate that we want to optimize. And this approach is essentially taking an educated guess, but then validating it quickly, and then reinvesting wherever it makes sense, wherever we are actually yielding results. So there is another method to this, which is more of a forward-facing approach. So instead of taking an educated guess, we can get even more data-driven than that and go within a predictive approach. And here I want to show you the following exercise. Let's say that we figure out that we have 1,000 visitors that are from Washington, D.C. And then out of those, 100 of them have seen the government solutions video, right? So out of the visitors that are from Washington, D.C., we have a 1% conversion rate to something, let's say to lead, from visitor to lead. And then out of the small segment, we have a 5% conversion rate. And Rob, are you still on?
Yes, I'm here.
Here you are. Yeah, I'm about to put you on the spot. Now, here, what will you do in terms of personalization if you have an insight like that?
I would probably go with a 5% conversion rate.
Right? Yeah. I mean, it's obvious to personalize for people from Washington, D.C. and show them the government solutions video. And in fact, if you do that, then you can get, hold on, I had a slide to that. You can get up to 35 net new conversions, right? Because if you do the math, if you get 5% on 1,000 versus 1%, then this is 50 conversions, but we decreased the 10 that we already had with the 1% rate, and we reduced the 5 that we already had out of the 100. So you get up to 35 net new conversions that you wouldn't have had anyway, right? So, so that gives you an insight and a way to compare, right? So as you start comparing these segments, and let's say you have another segment that's smaller. We have a segment of people that fall under marketing persona, which is 500 people, and then we had 100 people who have seen a certain page, it's a digital experience cloud page. And comparing these and comparing what are the net new conversions that a potential personalization effort or optimization effort can bring can really help you determine how many net new conversions you can bring, which is a great way to for an algorithm to make a decision and tell you, okay, well, it's your best bet to personalize in this area, without even knowing, all the complexities and all the ideas that you're brainstorming. It can actually look into the data and create all these different combinations and permutations of segments and say, okay, well, your best bet is to personalize for visitors for Washington, D.C. Now, it's still recommended to go agile and go really fast and validate the results and then refine and fine-tune as you possibly can. But the technology today really gives us that insight in being able to look at all the various data points and see where our low-hanging fruit is, where our opportunity is. Because that opportunity could be in social media, that opportunity can be in email, that opportunity can be in multiple other places. And you know, to put it in words, it's probably not just one opportunity, right? It's a marathon. It's not a sprint. It's a series of small opportunities, small improvements that you can take. And if you take all these three practices, if you focus on integrating business and IT together within the technology stack, if you focus on centralizing content and delivering it and filtering it for personalization, and if you focus on using data to determine where to invest in, where to improve, and how quickly do you measure, now this is a good way to do that. And prescriptive analytics, again, this concept is the concept that I explained within the Venn diagrams a little bit before, is really this idea that technology and algorithms and everything like that can help with that. They can resurface the ideas. They can help you show you where the lowest hanging fruit is so you can hit the ground running, be successful with the first project, and then potentially get the buy-in for further projects as the strategy develops over time. But it is really important to think of personalization in the sense of an ongoing process that you need to fine-tune, you need to centralize, you need to assign owners to, you need to assign metrics to, and you need to make it a part of your overall strategy, even digital transformation strategy. So with that, I know we have a few more minutes to go. Rob, Anthony, I'm going to kick it over to you. Now there's a few questions from the audience that we may be able to address.
Yes, there are. There are a number of questions. We'll hopefully get to a good number of them. And if not, we're more than happy to follow up with folks. In fact, we've got, if you have direct questions, feel free to send them to us and we'll make sure they get them answered. But we do have a number of questions, and one of them is, it's actually we got multiple times. And basically, I'll read one of them. On average, how long is the ROI time frame? So I'll take a shot at that one. So I think when you talk about ROI, it's based upon two things: the value you get and what you put out. So when it comes to what you put out, we don't know what you're going to use to do personalization, so it's hard to tell that. But whatever you decide to use and whatever system or process that you invest in, the return on that investment, it's not on just personalization. It's on what personalization drives. So if you are driving personalization to support you're trying to drive more revenue. So you're trying to drive, maybe it's based upon acquisition of new clients. So maybe you're applying personalization to your website or to your email campaigns or to your social media or whatever. So you just have to assign that cost of personalization to whatever the results are that you're driving towards. If you are using personalization to improve your customer retention and your customer engagement scores, well, then you apply it to that. So it really depends on what the cost is and what is your end goal. So don't think of personalization as an end. It's merely a means to that end. So hopefully that answered that question.
And I have a more sort of math-specific answer to that.
Feel free.
A more math-specific answer. ROI is usually, again, Rob is spot on that it depends on what you want to impact. But to me, the time frame for ROI and to get significant metrics for ROI for something like a purchase is usually your purchase cycle plus a small number. So if it takes you 3 months to complete a purchase cycle on average, so let's say you're a B2B company and it takes you 3 months, and you launch some personalization or some kind of effort, it doesn't have to be personalization, well then you have to have a significant number of people go through that experience visit your personalized experience, and then go through a purchase cycle. So typically to get a statistically significant sample, you need that sizable number of conversions. And there's of course statistical theories about how much is a sizable number of conversions. And yeah, we tend to incorporate those within products and technology. But the math-specific example is usually would be around 3.5 months for that. So my approach usually is when I impact conversions and try to impact them is that I look at a couple of different metrics. One is a more short-term and one is a more long-term metric. The short-term metric gives you this instant gratification that we're used to as marketers. So if it's something like a trial or like signing up for updates or requesting a demo, something that doesn't require investment, looking at that metric is valuable. Over time, we want to get into more long-term indicators, but they don't give us that type of instant gratification we're used to. So the shorter-term metric will actually sort of help you feel good about the short-term goals while the numbers are accumulating on the long-term one.
Okay, and we only have a couple minutes left, so let's hopefully get one more, maybe two left. This is at Svetla. How do you translate those flexible dynamic segments into actionable personalized content without losing the manageability of the personalized content?
Okay, that's a good question.
It's a long question, too.
It's a great question. My answer to that is information architecture. So when you go into these types of things, obviously the flexible dynamic segments will yield all kinds of stuff, right? Will yield geography suggestions, will yield behavioral suggestions, and anything like that. And you need to have a flexible enough tagging infrastructure within whatever you use to manage content. And you need to have categorization, you need to have tagging, and you need to be able to add potentially multiple other facets, so not just categories, not just tags, but maybe you want to classify by industry, and you need to be able to add that facet to it. Or you need to be able to classify by geography, and you're able to add that facet to it. So the flexibility in metadata is crucial for this not to become complete and total mayhem. And again, Agile applies here as well, right? Because initially, you don't want to implement a brand new taxonomy and classification for a suggestion you haven't validated yet. So maybe you just add a little static content and say, hey, here's our 3 top case studies for the US, and you just kind of pick them manually. But if this proves to be something extremely successful, well, then you may want to categorize everything by geography. And in this case, you add that classification layer, and some interns come in and classify everything over a week or something like that. But apply that Agile approach to that delivery as well.
And I'm just add one brief comment, add that, and then we're at the top of the hour, so we'll have to stop. One thing, just remember, your personalized content to your decision-making process without human intervention, the better off you're going to be. So if you can get rid of the human element in between what you're getting for your results to the suggestions that you can implement, it's going to obviously make it much more manageable. And with that said, we didn't get to go through all the questions. I apologize. We'll definitely address those later with you individually, but we are at the top of the hour, so so our time is done, but I'd like to thank the AMA and hand it back to Anthony.
Thanks so much, Robert, and Svetla, thank you as well. A lot of great information, so thank you for spending this hour with us. We really do appreciate it. Just a quick reminder to everyone, as I mentioned at the beginning, we are recording the full presentation, so we'll be sharing a link to the full recording with you so you can go back and revisit all of this great information at your convenience and share it if you see fit. So look for that coming your way soon. I want to extend a big thank you to those of you that were able to join us on Twitter today. We appreciate your engagement there. If you weren't able to join, you can still go post-webcast and engage. Again, today's hashtag was CMS Personalization. So in closing, just a big thank you to Sitefinity Telerik, a Progress company, for sponsoring our webcast today, as well as to ReadyTalk for providing the platform that we use. And if you'd like to learn more about ReadyTalk and their services, you can go to readytalk.com/AMA. Last, of course, I want to thank you, the audience, for sharing an hour from your busy day with us. We certainly hope you found this information helpful, and we look forward to seeing you again very soon on another AMA Thought Leader webcast. That does end our presentation for today. Thanks again for joining, everyone. Have a great rest of your day.